Yeah, man, I heard they were talking about. So we got some stuff to address. People said you can't shoot real estate photo and video on the Sony Fx30. Man, come on. Let's address the comments right now. Yo, it's your boy One Shot Nas. I'm back with another video. Today, I'm talking to you about how you can shoot real estate video and photo on the Sony Fx30. Let's address the comments. First of all, it's a whole bunch of videos talking about how you can't shoot photo on the Fx30 for real estate. Now, that's like the biggest one. Second, there are videos talking about how, oh, the low lights messed up and this, and that. So I'm going to talk to you about how you can, why you should, and how I did it on the Sony Fx30 and why I'm finna buy another one today. So tap in. First of all, the Sony Fx30 is a great option for real estate video photo because it's an APS-C body and because it's a cheap option. Plus there are cheap lenses that we'll talk about that you can use to shoot real estate photo and video. And to talk about the #1 lens that I just bought, the world's widest APS-C lens that is also zoom for Sony E-mount, is the Sigma 10 to 18 millimeter, which I'm shooting on right now, and I'll be shooting on all my YouTube videos. So to be honest, who says you can't do it? You can do it. This is the widest lens that you should use to shoot real estate video and photo on the Sony Fx30. So yeah, you can do it. Yes, there's a lens for it. And there's other options to shoot video and photo on the Sony Fx30, like the Sony E-mount 11 millimeter, the Sony 10 to 18 f4, because this one is a 2.8. There is the Leica 9 millimeter. People use that, I think it's full frame, but on an APS-C body, it's like 14 millimeter. But the Sigma 10 to 18 is a 15 to 35 field of view. So you're gonna get that 15 millimeter field of view. Of course, you can shoot real estate video and photo on that millimeter range. So people don't know what they're talking about when they're talking about that. Guys, stay off YouTube because apparently they are watching the wrong videos. And I'm going to tell you and show you video on how I shot mine. So this lens that I'm shooting on is obviously the lens you should use for real estate video. It's the Sigma 10 to 18 2.8, the world's widest APS-C mirrorless camera lens that you can buy for mirrorless cameras at APS-C, Sony E-mount. I have the Sony E-mount version. They're making it X and RF. But yeah, APS-C camera, please get the Sigma 10 to 18 because it's amazing for real estate video as wide as this video is right now. That's why I bought it, for content and for real estate video. So let's get back to the real estate video part. Even though you're shooting on a crop sensor lens and a crop sensor, that really does not matter. And the fact that it's 15 to 35 really does help because what do people normally shoot real estate videos on? The 16 to 35, the Canon one, the Sony one. It's like a really popular focal range for real estate photography, real estate video. So unless you need something wider like a 10 mil, which people do use, I would suggest you buy this lens. And because you're shooting on a sensor like this, doesn't mean you're not gonna have the proper low light. It doesn't mean your low light's gonna be bad. I actually used this camera when it came to low light and I bumped the ISO up, even though the house that I was shooting had a lot of windows in it, but I did pick the right time to come, but the light was coming in amazing. And I did go to ISO 2500, I did go to 3200 and 4000, but you really can't tell that this is a Sony APS-C sensor due to it just being an APS-C sensor. So don't listen to these guys talking about, oh, you need full frame, this and that, because there are caveats on having full frame when it comes to real estate photography, because anyway, with real estate photography, we're supposed to be shooting at f4, f8, really not even f4, really like f8, f5, f11. So if you're having a full frame camera and you're shooting at f1.8, you're not going to get any of the house in the frame in the first place because they're going to be out of focus. And with the APS-C body, we have more focal range. We have more focus range, so you can actually get more in focus with APS-C than you can with full frame. So don't listen to these guys because, oh, APS-C versus full frame and you can't see, it's low light, it's terrible, things like that, because they really don't know what they're talking about. I wouldn't continue to keep listening. I would say for my first Sony Fx30 video and photo job that it went really well and that I would do it again. And I'm actually encouraging myself to go and find more real estate clients so I can shoot with the Sony Fx30, because I sat and watched a lot of videos talking about the video footage of the Sony Fx30 and people were saying, oh, it was amazing, this and that. Some people said it was terrible, but the photo capability was the biggest caveat that I saw, talking about HDR bracketing and not having it. Long story short, the Sony Fx30 does have that, but I couldn't unlock the feature at the time. But if you know how to take a good photo, you're fine. It doesn't really matter. So my first job went very well. I say this combo that I had was the Ronin RSC2 and the Sony Fx30 with the Sigma 10 to 18 2.8. it was like awesome. I didn't have to do any lens swapping. People obviously do lens swap when they go on real estate videos, like doing 50 mil, 85 mil. I didn't decide to do any of that. I just went to the highest point of this lens, which is 18 millimeters, which is like a 35 mil equivalent. And I just got closer to the subject, but I was shooting. It was really nice. I think that on the wide end is good. There was a small caveat to the lens having a small bit of distortion, as you can see on the sides, but it wasn't that big of a deal. You really couldn't tell. And that's not that much to fix in post, especially in photo, but in video it's a little bit, but you can still fix it in post, or you can punch in or things like that. So if it's really a big problem for you, I would suggest to buy, I don't even know, because there are certain lenses that have distortion, and a non-distortion lens does cost a lot of money, and I would go full frame at that moment. So it just depends on what house you're doing, and we're going to talk about why you should make sure you're shooting correctly. All right. So again, my first house went really good with the Sony Fx30. I just shot it recently. It was amazing. I knew I was going to do great because I've shot real estate video before, so I was confident on that. But with this lens and the Fx30 high dynamic range, I knew I was going to kill it. So you go out there and you kill it as well. The Sony Fx30 will do you the best that it's going to do because it has high dynamic range. It's damn near FX3. So don't worry about the guys in YouTube comments. So my first photo job with the Fx30, because I just talked about my first video job, which was the same house. And I didn't have a problem. People talked about that, you know, because it's electronical shutter, it was going to cause a problem. But to be honest, I did have the lights on, and I had my shutter speed at 1/25 because I was coming from 60 frames a second, and I was doubling my shutter. And I didn't actually have a problem with it. So 1/25 the shutter was good. I did go to 400. I did see some banding in certain shots because of the lights, but as long as you stay at 1/25, you're fine. Of course, the house is not moving. It's not a moving subject. So as long as you have a tripod and the camera's not moving, those shots will come out great. Now, the problem that I saw in a lot of videos when it came to people talking about HDR bracketing. Now, HDR bracketing is a new concept. I didn't know anything much about it. I'm gonna kind of tell you what it is. HDR bracketing is when you go like super low in exposure to like middle to like regular to mid-high to overexposed, and apparently the camera does something to where it pulls out like the best of all 5 or 7 pictures. So I know the Fx30 has that feature. I saw it in the menu system, but for some odd reason I could not unlock that tool, and I actually tried very hard to while I was on set. Like I got there kind of early so I could figure it out. I saw it was on there when I was going to shoot my photos, but it wasn't. Somebody in the comments, please tell me what I could do to fix that. It's really not big of a deal, to be honest. If you just shoot photos and you know how to get great composition, you know how to put your shutter speed somewhere, you know how to, make sure the electronical shutter is going to be fine, you know how to make sure your iris is good, then I think you're going to be fine, to be honest. The low light wasn't that bad. I mean, if anything, you could add soft lighting in there with some external lighting. You don't really have to do that because the Sony Fx30 did great. Unless you're shooting a wood home in the middle of the dark, that's different. I freelanced a job that was a $5 million house. And that job, I shot with the 11 to 20 millimeter Tamron, and that house actually came out really amazing. It was a video, and it was a really wide house. And with the 11 to 20 millimeter, I did really great, and the people had no problem. But I did notice at night when I shot, the ISO was a little grainy, but it wasn't too bad. And I didn't get any complaints from the freelancers. But I just noticed it myself when I pulled it in to look at it before I transferred the files. Anything that can use noise reduction is fine. Like the Fx30 is like the most clean sensor you'll get when it comes to film grain. Film grain is natural. Everything in the noise campaign is natural. So if you're getting anything that's too clean, that's not good. Anyways, the photos were great. Everything went amazing. I had no problem shooting any of this. So I'm telling you that you can shoot real estate photography and video on the Sony Fx30. Photo, video. My experience was amazing. My 2 experiences were great with video. My 1 experience was great with photo. I had a great time. So I think you should keep shooting it. I think you should try it. Also in the photo category, the Sony Fx30 is a 24 megapixel sensor. So you're going to have high quality photos because it's a 24 megapixel sensor. So people say it's not a photography camera, but that photo is going to be super great. That's 26 megapixels because I shot my photos in JPEG fine, and that JPEG fine was amazing. It does have raw output capability when it comes to video, and it does have internal raw photo when it comes to photos. So I personally didn't want raw photo because I was going to edit it myself. Lightroom does support it, but not as well as they do every other camera. So I really didn't want to put those 40 megabyte files into my camera. So I decided to do fine JPEG. Those fine JPEG shots came beautifully. I had an amazing time shooting that. I suggest you shoot a fine JPEG. I suggest that you keep shooting, first of all, because the Sony Fx30 is very capable. It's very capable of everything and anything. It's like the best running gun camera. It's like the best cinema camera for video. It does do photo. It has its limits, but if you make sure you're continuously shooting correctly. I'm going to get into real estate, video, and photography real quick, into getting the right shot at the right time. So let's talk about that real quick before I close. So in conclusion, I'm going to talk to you about why you should pick the right time. I decided to do some research on the house and see when the sun came up and what time it was going to come up, because that really does play a big factor into lighting and into if you have to crank your shutter or not. So I decided to shoot my real estate videos early in the morning because the sun rises a certain way and the sun is so soft when it comes to drone footage. I really like to get the rising of the sun and the dusk look in my drone footage. So I'll sit and book a real estate shoot for 4 hours just because I want that shot. And sometimes it really does help the windows if your real estate house has a lot of open windows and you don't want the harsh sun, as like right now it's kind of hitting the ground, making me light up a little more. So you don't want the harsh sun to come through the windows and blow out your highlights. You kind of want it to be nice. So I decided to come in the morning, and that helps the FX30 flexibility so much more. And that also makes sure that if I do have to stay longer for certain rooms that are darker, I can wait for the sun to hit those rooms and I don't have to crank my ISO up because I'm trying to get in and out quickly. Now, if you don't talk to your realtor, you don't talk to the builder and talk about these things, you're going to have a problem with your Sony Fx30. But I choose to play the strengths, not the weaknesses. So you have to know your strengths and weaknesses of this camera to make sure that you're shooting the right thing and it doesn't look grainy, it doesn't look terrible. Because the guy I wanted to shoot with, the first time I ever shot with the Sony Fx30, it was supposed to be some lights, and I shot at night. So I told him, okay, cool, let me just shoot at dusk and not complete dark. So I decided to shoot at dusk, and the shots came out so nice. I can't show you because I was on an NDA for showing you the video, but I can talk about it. So it was actually like a good experience when it came to shooting at dusk. I didn't have too much grain. It's just when I wanted to go and get some safety shots, I like to get safety shots at the end, like at super pitch black night. Then I had to crank the ISO up, and then I saw those grainy shots, things like that. But it wasn't actually terrible. It was okay. So again, the Sony Fx30 will work great with you if you work great with it and you work with your client to know your strengths and weaknesses when it comes to this camera. You know this camera shoots in RAW, so if you have to throw your white balance off just to get the shot today but fix it in post, do that. You know it shoots in JPEG RAW. You know it shoots in JPEG fine. If you don't want RAW, you can do that. You know it has RAW output, so you can fix it in post if you needed to for video. You also know that this lens is the widest you can get. So in knowing all those things, you have to work the camera and not let the camera work you. These guys on YouTube want to sit there and make the camera work them out. You have to work the camera. You have to work your job. You have to be the creator. So you be the creator. You can shoot real estate, video, and photo on the Sony Fx30. You have to work your shoots and work with your client. So again, I had a good time when I shot mine. You have a good time when you shot yours. It's your boy One Shot Nas. Coming back in with another video. Please like, comment, subscribe to your boy One Shot Nas. And if you have any questions or any comments about your shoots and what you did with the Sony Fx30 or any videos you want to see, please drop them in the comments below. But it's your boy. So peace.